Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Culture Dose, Art for Wellbeing. My name is Danielle Galotta, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to people who have joined our program previously and to anyone who's joining our program for the first time today. To begin, we'd like to have an acknowledgement of country, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Black Dog Institute stands. We acknowledge the Gadigal and the Bidjigal peoples of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So as you've been aware, hopefully, Culture Dose is our fortnightly experience and a collaboration between the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Black Dog Institute. In the program, we hope you find time to connect and take time out to connect with your thoughts and feelings. In each session, we highlight 3 artworks from the collection of the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and we create time for you to look closely, observe, imagine, and share your responses with us all. I'd like to welcome our co-host as well, Professor Catherine Boydell.
Thanks very much, Danielle, and hello everyone. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining our 10th session of our fortnightly noon sessions of Culture Dose. As Danielle mentioned, I'm Catherine Boydell. I'm a professor of mental health at the Black Dog Institute, and my program of research focuses on using the arts in the research process, both to create research knowledge and to disseminate or communicate empirical research using the arts. And when I talk about the arts, I'm really talking about visual, performative, and literary ways of communicating and translating knowledge. Culture Dose is based on the Arts on Prescription program, which is a collaboration between Danielle and the Art Gallery and myself and Black Dog. And our research exploring the impact of the Arts on Prescription program showed significant increases in mental health and well-being, and in a sense of community inclusion and connectedness. And based on these positive findings, we decided to extend the arts engagement to the broader public in the form of Culture Dose. I'd also like to acknowledge that October is Mental Health Month and highlight the importance of the arts and its impact on mental health and well-being. We know from a great deal of research evidence that shows that the arts, broadly defined, can reduce anxiety and depression, can enhance feelings of belonging and connectedness, and can promote empathy. This is our final session in this series for this year, and I'd like to remind you all that our sessions are available for viewing. We're appreciative to everyone who's taken the time to complete the pop-up survey that follows each session. To date, we have 150 responses, and these will be very important to include in our planned funding submissions. We are definitely keen to reinstitute Culture Dose in 2021. As Danielle mentioned, I'll be moderating the discussion this afternoon, so please ensure that your video and microphone are off during the session. You'll be invited to share your responses in the chat box, and you'll see that you have the option of responding only to the panelists, Danielle and I, or to all attendees if you want the entire group to view your comments. We also suggest that you might want to have a pencil, pen, or other materials present during the session in case you'd like to draw, doodle, and engage in any other creative activity during the session. Over the course of these weeks, we've had some lovely submissions of poetry, drawings, and photographs that have been submitted. So it's lovely to see the ways in which these artworks have inspired you. To prepare for the session, I'd like to engage you in a brief meditative exercise. If you can all begin by bringing your attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. You can notice your body seated wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body on the chair or on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. And as you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen, enlivening the body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. You can notice your feet on the floor Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor, the weight and pressure, vibration, heat. You can notice your legs against the chair, pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness. Notice your back against the chair or on the floor. Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Then notice your entire body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath. And then, when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Catherine. Today's session will be focused on self-reflection. So creating time for reflection in our lives is important in developing self-awareness, allowing us to consider neutrally our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. In turn, we're able to look at ourselves with interest and curiosity. The selection of artworks we've chosen for this session invites us to observe closely, reflect on our senses, and allow us to contemplate being still and looking. I'll invite you to take a few moments to survey the artwork, to engage with the gaze of our subject. I hope at this point you are in direct engagement with this male character. His large, round almond eyes, confidently looking directly at us. You'll notice his prominent brows, his manicured facial hair, beard and moustache, and his interesting approach to engaging with us. It seems as if we have caught him perhaps off guard, having just removed the mask. He seems to be a person confident in himself. Perhaps he is inviting us into his world. He has beautifully tailored garments on. You'll notice the intricate buttons that seem to be placed where his chest is. There's a great attention to detail here. The folds in the fabric, the buttons, and the stitching on the shoulders. I invite you to imagine, who is this character? What was he doing before we interrupted him? And what would he tell us about himself? This is a beautiful, delicate piece of work. If you look into the background, you'll find very fine horizontal lines that almost become a wall of shimmering waves and allows the figure to jut out almost in 3D. The shadow on his face and on his garment is achieved through cross-hatching. Again, very intricate and fine lines.
We have a comment, Danielle, from Catherine, with respect to your conjecturing about who he might be. She notes cauliflower ears with question mark, a rugby player, hands are nailed, maybe a potter or ceramic worker.
Very interesting thoughts. And yes, I'd like to perhaps hear other people sharing perhaps who they think this character could be. What would he be thinking? He does have a very strong command of his body, standing upright, straight back, looking directly at us. Brings me back to some of the comments that Catherine was making in the guided meditation. That reminds me, when I look at this image, that I imagine his breath going in and out, holding that mask in his hands, something that's quite important to him. Has he just created it? Has he just removed it from his face?
We've got a couple of comments around this figure being an actor in Shakespearean times, which is what I was thinking. Yeah, we've got 3 different comments thinking that this is his role. He's in the theater.
And that's right. I mean, with works like this, we can imagine a multitude of interpretations, but we do know this figure was an actor, is an actor, and in the tradition of the Italian commedia dell'arte. So it does seem, again, with the narrative that you invent, that perhaps he has just removed his mask. Maybe he's come away from a performance. He's become aware of his body language, his voice, his movement on stage. And perhaps with removing that mask, we see the true person.
We also have Jane mentioning that the mask reminds her of COVID.
Yes. It's interesting to actually reflect on the 3 works that we'll see today do resonate with our current new normal. I want you to imagine that if by chance he could speak to us today, in light of the theme of self-reflection, what do you think the advice he could give us? Being an actor, and we know he was very well known for imitating men and women through his voice. In his professional career, he invented himself. And I suppose as we go through life and different roles that we play, we put on our own mask. And perhaps in different times when we are quiet and perhaps in our own space, we're able to let go and be ourselves, as hopefully our character is today here.
We have quite a few comments in reaction to your discussion, Danielle. Be yourself, take out your mask and be yourself, live in the moment. He would probably speak in Italian, so I wouldn't understand him. Enjoy the moment, follow your dreams. I'd imagine it would be quite difficult to make it onto the stage. And it's interesting, this morning I was at a student session where they were presenting some of their work, and it was all about the authentic self, passing, front stage and backstage. So very relevant to this discussion about self-reflection and I guess complexity of the human and, you know, the, I guess, problematizing the authentic self. So it's very much related to this discussion. We also have Sandra saying, be flexible.
Definitely, especially in this current situation. I'm going to share with you the details for this work because it is a very powerful work. And you may be surprised to find it's actually quite a tiny piece. This is a work by Agostino Carracci, and it's a portrait of Giovanni Gabrieli. And he was known as Il Civello. And created in 1599, it is a very intricate engraving, approximately 15.6 by 12.4 centimetres. And this image, this print, is in the collection of the Art Gallery of New South Wales. But other editions also exist in other collections. And interestingly, this particular version of the edition of the print, through time, has been cut. So if you look online, you might find other versions that have an extended inscription below. But here, when you look at it again, on the bottom right-hand corner, you will see a very delicate initial of the artist. And it's interesting here because the character or the portrait is identified to a known person who existed. And again, as we discussed, being an actor, someone who in their professional career is on public display, performs, speaks the lines of other characters, to find his authentic self, metaphorically and in reality, would be removing that mask, stepping off the stage. Very powerful and strong individual, I feel, in himself. I'll transition to our second work, which has a very different feeling. I'll give you a few moments to look closely, observe the painting. To observe the body language. The young woman is seated upright on a chair. Her arms are folded, one arm over the other. She sits up and stares and gazes directly at us. I get a sense that she's aware of her breath. She feels the weight of her body on that chair. And she confidently engages with the artist. Here we have the privilege of being the artist, of being the observer. Or perhaps is she observing us? There is little in the painting to give us any clues to her identity. And this allows us to be creative and invent our own narrative. Take note of this sharp light coming from the left. That perhaps there's a window open and we see her left side highlighted. There's no jewelry, no earrings, no ring, no necklace. Her hair seems relaxed. She hasn't overly produced herself, manicured herself. She seems happy and confident in herself. Sometimes it would be hard to sit still. In our busy lives, it's sometimes easier to keep going. But to take time out to think and to reflect on our past and our emerging future is what I feel this young character is doing. I want you to imagine the relationship or the discussion between the artist and the sitter. The discussion that occurs while this is being created.
Jane says, I thought I could see an earring, slouched shoulders, not wanting to be there. And Catherine notes the woman's breasts seem asymmetric.
Some close observations there. You'll probably also notice the way the artist has treated the surface. It's obviously a figurative piece. We know we can identify a figure. But that here the artist has used colour and tone to create a mood. In the previous etching, the artist used line and cross-hatching to create form and tone. Where here the artist is using colour and strokes to create a texture and a warmth.
We have oh, sorry, Danielle. We have an observation from Rhonda. She has a slim, young face, but what appear to be older, swollen arms. Could she have had cancer? That would make for times of reflection.
Mm.
And then Catherine notes a somber, sullen mood.
And again, that could relate to the other comment previously that perhaps she didn't want to be there. Or perhaps she's fidgeting. I'm not sure if anyone has had an experience of being the subject for a portrait or being a life model. It takes a great deal of focus to actually take time to be still for 10, 15, or even 30 minutes. This would allow our figure here much time for self-reflection.
We have a couple of other comments. The black walls, little light, and her eyes make me think of sadness. And another comment, the background makes me think she could be outside.
They're great comments to share. Again, having a look at a work like this without any context really does help our imagination to run wild.
We have a couple more comments. Reminds me of when my mom would make me sit still for a picture, like she is coerced. The intensity of her gaze seems to increase as I engage intensely into her eyes. She seems very present to me, says Sandra. And Nicole, I love the vibrance of her red hair in contrast to the rest of the painting.
I'm glad that that last comment was provided. Yes, the red hair does seem to dominate the composition and our engagement with her. Again, with a work like this, it also begs us to consider if we were having a self-portrait painted, how would you pose? Is it something that you would resist? Is it something that you would prepare for? Construct your image? Would you be the type of subject that would sit and allow the artist free range? Or would you be the type of subject that you would pop up every few moments to look behind the easel? Currently at the Art Gallery of New South Wales, we are celebrating portraiture of all different forms and interpretations through the 2020 Archibald Prize. So the Archibald Prize is a prize that really allows artists in the present to communicate what their understanding and what their vision of portraiture is in the current moment. So it's interesting for ourselves to reflect on if we were going to have our own self-portrait painted, perhaps commissioned, or even better, paint our own self-portrait. What inner findings about ourselves would we wish to communicate to others? Or even if you did create your own self-portrait, that it was created for your own benefit and your own self-awareness.
Rhonda says they're great questions to think about. And I absolutely agree. I'm thinking if I was having my portrait done, I would wait. I would want to wait to see the finished product. We also have a comment from Jane who notes that her hands are very masculine.
The portrait is, again, created with colour and tone rather than line. So the figure does seem to have a weight about it. And perhaps the weight of the figure is a testimony to the strength of character that this young woman displays and that the artist has picked up on. Also the gaze. She's gazing quite intensely at us. I feel that she wants to tell us something. In the past, I've painted and sketched small little caricatures of different people. And it's always interesting to see how people receive that sketch that you make of someone. Sometimes they are shocked that you've taken note of something about them that they hadn't been aware of. In the etching, there was a comment of Giovanni's earlobe. And I mentioned his large almond eyes and pronounced brow. In this portrait, I see her inquisitive and questioning stare. I feel she's quite empowered. And she has that confident, almost rebellious pose there, where she invites us to not only gaze at her, but also questioning, who are we? I'm going to reveal that this is by an Australian artist, Alice Danziger, and the title is The Girl with Red Hair. And when I selected this work, I have to say I was quite taken aback that it was painted by a woman, but the title again identified the young woman by her physical feature of the red hair. And I thought it did make me ponder more about the artist and what does this reveal about Alice. She's portrayed a strong figure. Perhaps she didn't want to reveal the identity of the subject. And I was delighted when I saw that this painting was painted in 1945 and purchased by the gallery in the year that it was painted, which just suggests that Alice was an artist that was of considerable note, and that the director and the board of trustees had taken note and were following her practice. So when I do look at this work, I'm struck by the features of the young woman, but I'm also very curious about the artist as well. Again, it's quite a considerable size painting, 72.7 centimetres by 54.1. So in comparison to the etching, quite a large work. I'll transition to our third work, which will have again a very different feeling. So I'll give you a few moments to enjoy and to take note of this carved figure seated on a carved wooden lotus pedestal. This might be a good moment to take note of your own body language, to take note of where your arms are, how you're seated, and most importantly, your breath. We see a figure here at peace, at one within themselves, with their eyes closed or looking down. Seated cross-legged, and their hands resting in their lap. Our figure here is looking within. You may notice the elongated earlobes of the figure. The hair cut very short. And subsequently, tufts of hair turning into tight curls, with a raised bun-like feature upon the head. The figure here is draped very humbly. There's no adornment. The figure is representing being at peace. You'll notice that the figure is carved out of one piece of wood, and the pedestal that it's placed on, it takes the form of a lotus flower. When we look at this imagery, many people will associate this with the figure of the Buddha, the historical figure that spent 7 years meditating under the Bodhi tree, seeking enlightenment. I hope some people are able to feel a sense of ease and stillness when they engage with this work.
We definitely have comments to radiating inner peace and a feeling of calm just viewing this.
Definitely. It's a beautiful piece that also helps us to connect. I found that by coincidence, my hands were placed in my lap, cupped. So in a way, I was my body language was mirroring some of the language here of the Buddha. And definitely.
Sorry. Just a comment from Jane. Peace pervades the space. I am jealous of such ability.
Exactly. In our contemporary world, finding time to be still can sometimes be very challenging. And in particularly when more of us are working from home and the blur between our professional life, our work life, our family life, our personal life intersect, to find these moments to be still, to find opportunities for self-awareness.
One of the things I'm noting, Danielle, is in each of the three artworks, I'm finding I'm attending to my posture. Like they just all seem to have such beautiful posture and sort of thinking about the working and slouching and really being quite conscious of that.
Exactly. And again, a sculpture like this is aesthetically very beautiful. The craftsmanship in the carving.
We have a comment from Chandra who says, I also notice a sense of protecting the meditator, the clothing protecting from the elements, the lotus protecting the space, leaving the Buddha to self-reflect and retreat to his thought.
It's a beautiful comment. And I do agree, he almost does seem to be protected. He's raised on that pedestal and protected by this gigantic lotus flower. And we do know that the lotus flower grows in the swampy, muddy ponds, and from that emerges such a beautiful, radiant, and iconic flower. And so I do agree, it's for many people, and in particularly myself, it is a very uplifting work. And I do take note that our two previous artworks, the figures engaged us directly. They were, in a way, questioning us as much as we were looking into their world and their persona. Where here we have the Buddha, who is at one with himself and has his eyes closed. He's not concerned with the material elements around him or the chaos, but taking charge, letting things wash over him. If we were going to title this work, I was wondering if anyone would like to share what they would title it.
A holding space. higher self, peace, inner peace, seated in calm, idolatry, silence, floating above,
Thank you for sharing those. Interestingly, the comment of idolatry, the reference to the practice of ritual, I will reveal that this particular piece is known as the Amida Buddha, and it would have been placed in potentially a Japanese temple. It's associated with the Pure Land sect, and a sculpture like this would have been a conduit for meditation. It would have been almost like an aid. And hopefully some of us here today, I hope, had that impression as well, that it actually, you were able to model that body language, that controlled breathing, that it sort of inspired you to take stock of yourself. Interestingly, these are two separate pieces, and the Amida Buddha is carved out of nutmeg wood. And as you can see, it's over 1,000 years old. And originally, this sculpture, as well as the pedestal, would have been covered in black lacquer and would have had rubbings of gold leaf. But over time, the passage of time reveals what we have today.
And yeah, we have a question as to whether these are available for viewing at the gallery currently.
Currently at the gallery, these are unfortunately not on viewing. However, part of the Culture Dose program is uncovering these hidden gems and allowing you to get exposure to them. The Amida Buddha is quite often on display, and I have to say it's been one of my favourite works in the gallery for a number of years. It's one of those works that you can go and visit, and you do have a personal connection with when you're in front of it. It's very beautiful work, and it's often kept on a white plinth on its own in on a sort of, there are times where it's in a glass cabinet, and there are often times where it is on a large plinth in the environment. So do keep an eye on it on the website, and it will let you know when it's on view. A very beautiful piece in the collection. I'll transition to our comparison slide. And we have three very different approaches to interpretations of self-awareness that artists have brought to us. I'll just note with the Amida Buddha and its pedestal would have been created by artisans who of course are artists, but through the passage of time, unfortunately, the identity of the artists are unknown. I was wondering whether we could see if there was a piece today, whether it was the very delicate and refined line piece in the etching, or the brooding oil painting, or perhaps is it the carved Amida Buddha that has resonated with you most today? That's very interesting that the first work has resonated very strongly, as well as the Amida Buddha. Thank you for sharing those responses. It's really interesting to see what people do connect with. Well, I'm going to try and move to our next. So, as in the previous sessions, you're invited to create a response to the artworks or themes we have explored today. Your response could take the form of a journal entry, reflecting on a day, a week, your experience during this pandemic, or potentially a poem in response to one of the artworks. Or you might feel like drawing a self-portrait from memory, so without looking into a mirror, but to create something that's really intensely personal. Or you may feel like sketching your own portrait using a mirror, or being a bit more adventurous and developing an abstract work that explores the topic of self-reflection. We would be delighted if you were able to create some work and potentially share it with us via the Culture Dose at blackdog.org.au. On the website of the Art Gallery of New South Wales, we've now posted all 10 sessions. The 10th session will be posted today or in the next couple of days, but all the art sets which will allow you to view the accompanying artworks and zoom in onto the works to have a closer look at your own leisure is available. And this is also available on the Black Dog Institute website as well. And we hope that you take the opportunity to revisit or perhaps guide someone using the art sets through a similar guided or facilitated experience. So again, we've come to the end of our final session, and I'd like to express my great delight and enjoyment in presenting these programs and working with my co-host, Professor Catherine Boydell, and in the background, Zoe Jenkins, who's done a lot of the magic here in getting it all working behind the scenes. But then again, we trust that you've had an experience today that has just perhaps started your journey on self-reflection today and helps you to engage in your own personal responses with curiosity and delight. As in the past sessions, a survey will pop up in a few moments, and as Catherine mentioned, the data from these surveys have been quite an eye-opener and will be evaluated by Catherine and her team in response to opportunities for further funding.
I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank Zoe. I think you expressed it beautifully, Danielle, in terms of working the magic behind the scenes. And to you, Danielle, for taking us through these artworks in such a beautiful way with that lovely calming voice of yours, which I think goes a long way to just creating that atmosphere to really engage. So thank you so much. And to all of our attendees, we have been delighted to have you with us and look forward to 2021, where we'll be taking up Culture Dose again.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll hopefully see you next year.
Have a great day.